I think the way I would start is to point out that over the last 40 or 50 years, capital throughout the world has had increasing difficulty in finding profitable outlets for investment. If you read the reports of the International Monetary Fund, for example, they often use the term there's a surplus of liquidity in the world, which means there's a lot of cash and nobody knows exactly what to do with it. So one of the things that's happened is that instead of making things that people really want and need, capital has been manufacturing needs and has been also investing a lot in assets. And one of the big assets it's invested in is land and development and urbanization. So we've seen a tremendous amount of money flowing into urban projects over the last 40, 50 years. And this has accelerated actually over, I'd say, the last 15 years in particular. One of the ways in which you can justify all of this is in fact to use the idea of tourism and to say that you're actually developing the land for tourist purposes. That you're developing the land for people to live in, to have second homes or third homes or something of that kind. And of course when you do that you want plenty of sun and sea, and those locations become marked, as it were, for a massive flow of investment. And so money just pours in there. But the money is an interesting thing. It doesn't necessarily create great environments to be a tourist in. The environments are really constructed for people to invest in. And this is one of the characteristics of urbanization over the last 20 or so years, I would say in particular, that we've been building cities for people to invest in, not for people to live in or to relax or really enjoy themselves in. So you see all of this spectacular sort of stuff on the beaches, all modeled on Miami Beach and, high-rise condominiums, which very often what they do is they actually destroy that which they're quoting as their big natural advantage, which is much of this development privatizes the beaches, turns a beautiful, pristine landscape into something that has some horrible, horrible architecture, and very little in the way of services and very little in the way, apart from the things that tourists might want on a very short-term basis. No sort of soul, if you want to call it that, so that they're just places for people maybe to come to. But a lot of these places have gone bankrupt. That is what I think is one of the most interesting things. So what you see going on in the area you're talking about, Baja California, would seem to me to be fitting into a rather global process of surplus capital, not knowing where to go, and being siphoned off into this kind of area. And it doesn't surprise me either that there's usually a lot of difficulties about pressure on local resources, and most of these regions that they're going to are areas where water is scarce. You will usually find populations in these areas get divided between those who've been bought off by development. But if there is a very strong local community with strong traditions and a strong kind of culture, then what you see are some very strong episodes of resistance against building of this kind, and a demand that, for instance, the beaches not be privatized, that the beaches always remain open to the public, that access to resources not be restricted, that water supply be equitably distributed if this development comes in. But I think probably even more important, in many instances you'll see developments of this kind get stopped by strong community action, usually combining cultural questions and environmental questions into a sort of a set of very good reasons why this development should not go forward. So this whole pattern of investment is something that I think people should understand for what it is, and then ask the question, can't we use all of that money and all of those resources and building materials to make a better world for everybody to live in, rather than simply resort places like this for people mainly to invest in?